Hey parents, Carmine here with your video review of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Just as a heads up, I can't even begin to pretend that this review will be spoiler-free. I'm going to have to cover a number of events that are pivotal to the plot and certain characters. If you don't want to have the story spoiled in major ways, skip to the end. Okay, now that that's over, I have a serious love-hate relationship with The Phantom Pain. I found it far more enjoyable than the Ground Zeroes prequel, and it has elements that are far superior to other games. There is a clear love and dedication put into its creation, and I don't just mean on Kojima's part. Here's an example. Fallout 4's companions are frustratingly useless. They have a horrible tendency to get in the way, shoot me and cause me damage, or want to have conversations at the absolute worst possible times. The Phantom Pain's companions stand in stark contrast to this. Each companion has a specific and obvious use, and with maybe the exception of the horse, each one is extremely useful in their particular role. When I'm using D-Dog, I can never be surprised by an enemy, since he tells me the exact position of everything around me, including certain objectives. I can use Quiet, a sniper companion, as a distraction to lure away enemies, while I clean them out of their resources and weapons, and D-Walker is essentially a mobile artillery platform that can work in both heavy combat situations and in situations that require stealth and finesse. And there were so many elements that were just as detailed and functional as the companions. The ability to upgrade and customize everything from weapons and equipment to my entire base. The Fulton system and its ability to steal enemies and vehicles quickly and efficiently. The ability to send squads of your army out on missions to gather money, resources, and personnel. There were a ton of elements that would normally have been excluded from other games, but were included in The Phantom Pain to great effect. And yet, despite this game having some extremely high highs, its lows were so absolutely low. For some reason, the designers insisted on including heavy combat-based boss battles. If I could have this game without the boss battles, it would be a serious competitor for Game of the Year, but the boss battles were so frustratingly stupid that I was literally screaming obscenities at the screen. In a game whose mechanics are so obviously designed for slow, deliberate, tactical movement combined with stealth and, most importantly, non-lethal combat, including levels where you're fighting enemies who wear heavy armor and rush at you with machine guns and swords, or a level where you single-handedly fight against a helicopter gunship and over 14 tanks and APCs, many of which have one-hit kill explosive weapons with a large splash radius, is a move born of a complete lack of understanding of the fundamentals of game design. The side operations and more benign main missions seriously piqued my interest in the Metal Gear Solid franchise and made me seriously consider going back and playing the third or fourth installment. But the boss battles included in 5 were so infuriating that I can't even stomach the idea of it right now. Add this to the fact that this is the first $60 game I have ever played where I truly felt like the microtransactions negatively impacted my gaming experience. Paying to instantly complete an away mission like what you're seeing right now usually costs between $2 and $5 real dollars. Paying to buy a new base costs between $10 and $15. Paying to move that base from one location to another costs around $5. And these purchases don't add content to your game. They only allow you to unlock upgrades and gain resources more quickly. This $60 title can easily double its price with microtransactions. Violence is probably the most obvious factor in this game, but its exact nature will depend on how the player chooses to approach the majority of gameplay. The game heavily rewards players who choose to use tranquilizers and other non-lethal weapons and maneuvers, and this is in both the short term and the long term. Hits from these types of weapons will involve no blood and do not kill the enemy directly. In the short term, stunning and extracting enemies can give the player points upon successful completion of the mission, which is good because that gives you more money. But extracting enemies is vital in the long term since that builds out the player's army and unlocks new upgrades that are pivotal to completing higher difficulty missions. That being said, there are a ton of lethal weapons that the player can use. Hits from these weapons results in some obvious blood, but there is no gore in gameplay even from explosions. In addition to this, if Snake, the main character, takes damage, he will be left bloodied as well. However, the blood does not clear up between missions. Snake will wear the blood on his face and clothes until the player goes back to the base and takes a shower. It makes blood much more obvious, especially when there are cutscenes involved. That doesn't mean that gore is never present. It's very obvious in a few specific cutscenes. Cutscenes in general call more attention to the blood, but there are some specific cutscenes that include some pretty obvious gore. For example, eventually the player will catch up with Skullface, the man who's probably the main antagonist. Once the major boss battle is complete, the player has the opportunity to deal with Skullface. You can either choose to shoot Skullface in the head, killing him, or to not shoot him. Being the generally lawful good player that I am, I chose to be merciful and to not kill him. But it didn't end up mattering because one of Snake's companions shows up and forces Snake to shoot Skullface's arm and leg off, something that is shown up close and personal. But that didn't end up mattering because another character came up and shot him in the head anyway. And if you think that's bad, there are a few cutscenes that don't paint the protagonists in a very positive light. In these scenes, the leaders of Snake's group interrogate and torture people that they suspect to be traitorous. They bend one guy's knee backwards and hook up Quiet to a circuit and electrocute her. This is after she's been going on mission after mission, faithfully watching and protecting me as I do my thing. I genuinely hated these moments because they made the main characters, including Snake, seem like bloodthirsty, violent lunatics, the kind of people that I would normally be fighting against in this type of game. I'm going to skip ahead to the substances and come back to the sexuality in a moment. There are a number of substances the player can use. Some are optional and can have beneficial effects, like pentazamine, which helps reduce gun sway. But the most prominent of these are the healing spray the Snake can use when heavily damaged, and the Phantom Cigar, some sort of e-cig that makes time go by extremely quickly. While Snake smokes the Phantom Cigar in a few cutscenes in order to represent the passage of time, I actively use it to unlock a particular cutscene. The easiest way to unlock the cutscene is to hop into a dumpster and hotbox with the Phantom Cigar for a while. While I'm sure there are more practical uses for the cigar, this is the only time I use it in the field. Alright, so I need to talk about Quiet. Quiet is the name of a sniper assassin that tries to kill you at the beginning of the game. Snake ends up subduing her, and if the player chooses to let her live, she'll become a very useful companion. However, Quiet has a few quirks. For example, she can't talk. Get it? She's quiet. She doesn't need to breathe either, or eat, or drink. Instead, she absorbs water through her skin and uses photosynthesis to create energy. Because of this, she refuses to wear clothes. No, seriously, that was the logic behind her bikini outfit. If the devs could have gotten away with her being completely naked, she would have thrown off the shackles of clothing and embraced nudity. Look, I love the female body, but this game blatantly reduces every female character to ass and titties. One of the first things you see when the game starts is a well-endowed nurse leaning her boobage over the camera to change an IV bag. Would it have been easier to walk around to the other side of the bed and do this? Absolutely, but then you wouldn't have such a titillating spectacle. But when the game introduces a band of 4 female snipers who have the face of the Borg Queen from Star Trek, it takes a long moment to focus on their ample boob physics and hindquarters. And Quiet is just the epitome of all of this. Sit long enough in your helicopter with her and she'll start stretching with her butt in the air towards you. Go to her cage on the base and she'll be sunbathing with her top undone. Go back to the base when it's raining and you'll get this cutscene. Oh, and remember how I was hotboxing in a dumpster with a Phantom Cigar? I did that in order to trigger a cutscene with Quiet where she takes a shower right in front of the camera. It's one of the most awkward cutscenes I have ever seen in any game. There are random soldiers gawking in the background as she and Snake take a shower together. I just can't. I can't. And it gets worse. I know, but seriously, it gets worse. The player can unlock a mission where they have to rescue Quiet from the Soviets that kidnap her. The guards bring her outside, and one of them proceeds to choke her while attempting to drown her. After she stops struggling, you can hear his pants unzip as he lines up to rape her. Yes, this is an actual thing in the game. But since Quiet actually gains energy from water and photosynthesis, she goes full on ninja and proceeds to kill everyone. This cutscene is the most graphic cutscene in the entire game by far, because not only does it include attempted rape and necrophilia, but then Quiet proceeds to murder everyone in the bloodiest way possible, including when she goes full on Mike Tyson and bites a guy's ear clean off. Clean off! She goes on to eventually curb stomp one guy in the crotch and stab another guy repeatedly in his lower regions. To say this content comes out of left field would be a serious understatement. It still completely blows my mind that this is even a thing.
Skullface's men then headed north. The target is OKB.
Normally, I like to give concessions to longer games. This game took me 80 hours to complete, and most of it was standard, non-lethal gameplay. But I can't play off a game that includes rape and repeatedly recalls the scene from Ground Zeroes where a bomb is hidden inside a woman's lady bits. I find this type of content to be an unbelievably poor taste, and it does little if anything to forward the characters or the plot. I genuinely loved this game. I wouldn't get as passionate about it if I didn't. Heck, I wouldn't have spent 80 hours playing it if I didn't love it. But the content included is definitely mature, and as a result, we gave this game a recommended age of 16 years old. Let me know what you think in the comments, and look for Rainbow Six Siege coming soon.